Mac and cheese is the ultimate comfort food, and this recipe is creamy, cheesy, and delicious. Great as a side dish or just a bowl straight on its own. Welcome to Recipes by Carina, where I share with you how to make classic and simply delicious recipes. Make sure to subscribe for a new video each week. To make this mac and cheese, the first thing you want to do is get a large saucepan of water over high heat. This recipe works great as in the time it takes the water to boil and the pasta to cook, the cheese sauce will be ready so it can go straight in the oven. Fill your saucepan about 2/3 full and place it over high heat. Add a good amount of salt to season the water. I've done about 3 tablespoons. While your water is coming to the boil, get started on the cheese sauce for this mac and cheese. We're going to make a roux, which is a French term for flour and butter cooked together to thicken a sauce. Measure out half a stick, 1/4 of a cup or 60 grams of butter and place it in a medium-sized saucepan. You'll notice I give the recipe measurements in metric and imperial, so no matter where you live in the world, this recipe should be easy enough to follow. If you'd like the full recipe for this mac and cheese, it'll be on my website, as well as the full measurements listed in the description box below. Place the saucepan over medium heat to melt the butter while we measure out the flour. We'll need 1/4 of a cup or 30 grams. This recipe makes quite a large dish of mac and cheese, enough to serve about 4 to 6, but it's also great as leftovers. If you're only cooking for 2 or you don't want any leftovers, it's incredibly easy to halve the recipe and cook it in a smaller oven dish. There's also a bunch of ways to use up leftovers, like fried mac and cheese, so let me know if you'd like a recipe for that. When your butter is completely melted, sprinkle in the flour. Use a wooden spoon or a whisk to combine the ingredients together, stirring as it cooks. You'll need to cook this for a few minutes over medium heat, just until it starts to become fragrant, almost a nutty smell. This is a white cheese sauce, so we don't want to brown the butter, just cook it out enough so the sauce doesn't have that uncooked, doughy flavour. We'll need 4 cups or 1 litre of milk for this recipe. I would recommend not using skim milk or trim here, as it can make the sauce more prone to splitting. Standard milk or half and half gives the sauce a thicker, creamier and richer flavour, which with this kind of dish is what you need. Start to add the milk to the saucepan, about 1/4 of a cup at first. There's no need to measure this, just estimate. Use your wooden spoon to combine the milk with the roux. It will immediately become thicker, stickier and almost rubber-like. Once it looks well combined, add a little more milk, repeating the process. At this point, every time you add more milk, the sauce will start to look broken, lumpy and gritty, but with a little mixing it will completely smooth out. I'll usually add half of the milk like this, a little at a time, stirring well in between until the sauce is more stable and has loosened. After this, the second half should easily be able to be poured in all at once. The water for your pasta should be at a rolling boil by this point. Mac and cheese is traditionally made with macaroni noodles, but honestly I've used all sorts of different shapes and I'll usually use what I have on hand. Small pasta that curves like elbows, spirals, cavatappi work best as the sauce sticks and coats better to all of the different ridges and curves. Pour the pasta into the water and use a wooden spoon to give the pasta a mix, separating it from each other so it won't stick in clumps. Cook the pasta for about 2 minutes less than the package directions. It's going to be cooked longer in the oven with the sauce, so we want it to still have a little bite to it so it doesn't turn up mushy at the end. Give the sauce a good stir and pour in the last 2 cups of milk to your sauce and give it a good mix. Turn the heat down to medium-low and cook for another 4 to 5 minutes, stirring occasionally so the sauce doesn't burn on the bottom of the saucepan. While the sauce and the pasta are cooking, prep the cheese. There are a lot of different options when it comes to cheese for mac and cheese, and essentially what you want is a softer cheese that will give you great texture to the sauce, and a harder cheese that will give you most of the flavour. I'm going with mozzarella and a cheddar, nothing fancy, but that's not what mac and cheese is about. Of course you can use something like Gruyere if you want it to be a little bit more fancy, but I'll usually use whatever I have in the fridge. Use a box grater to grate both cheeses. I'll always grate the cheeses rather than buying pre-grated, as I don't find it tastes or melts as well, but this is personal preference. If you prefer pre-grated, because of course it is definitely easier and quicker, then of course you can use that. You'll need 250 grams of both cheeses, which works out to be about 9 ounces or 2 cups worth. The sauce should have thickened by this point, you just need to be able to coat the back of a spoon. Turn the heat off and season with salt, about 1 to 2 teaspoons worth for flavour. We're also going to add a couple of other things, but this is where you can get creative. Since this is a cheese sauce, we'll need some nutmeg, about a 1/4 teaspoon's worth. Nutmeg provides a very earthiness and nutty flavour, which with cheese works perfectly. I'm also going to add a heaped tablespoon of Dijon mustard, but you can substitute for another type of mustard or mustard powder. Other ingredients that work really well are chili flakes or cayenne pepper if you're going for a bit of heat. Give the sauce a really good mix to combine, and we're about ready to add the cheese. The most annoying thing about making macaroni and cheese is it can be prone to splitting when the cheese is added, but there are a few reasons why this will happen. The first is that your sauce is too hot. You don't want to be heating the sauce while adding the cheese. Make sure to turn the heat off, and if the element is still very hot, move the saucepan somewhere else. The second is you've used a low-fat milk to make the sauce. As I explained before, this can be an issue. Finally, the third is you've added the cheese too quickly. I'll usually switch to a whisk here, as it just makes incorporating the cheese easier and faster. Start to add the cheese a small handful at a time and mix really well in between. The residual heat from the sauce will start to melt the cheese gently, and your sauce will become thicker. When most of the cheese is melted, add another handful. We're going to save about 1/3 of the mozzarella cheese, or the softer cheese if you've used something else, for melting on top, so make sure you don't use it all. The sauce doesn't need to be completely smooth. You may still have cheese that hasn't melted, but this will happen in the oven or when it's mixed with the macaroni. Let me know in the comments below if you make mac and cheese often, or if you've never made it yourself but you're going to give this recipe a try. Drain your pasta and give it a shake. Transfer it back into the large saucepan. It should still have a bit of a bite to it and not be completely cooked, as it will continue in the oven. This basically stops it turning to mush and makes sure there is still some texture. Take your cheese sauce and pour it over the pasta. This is also the point where you want to add anything else in. Popular ingredients are crispy bacon pieces, jalapenos are a favourite of mine, sun-dried tomatoes, really whatever you would like. Take the wooden spoon and give the mac and cheese a really good mix. The cheesy sauce is going to stick perfectly to the pasta and fill up the centres. Pour your mac and cheese into an oven-safe dish, spreading it out evenly. This part is optional, but it's something I'll always do. Add about 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs on top. I'll go for panko usually, but standard breadcrumbs work just as well. This gives a bit of crunch to the mac and cheese, which in my opinion it needs. Without is okay, but it can get a little boring. The crunchy cheesy top after it's baked is the best part. Sprinkle over the leftover mozzarella or the other type of cheese you've decided to use. Place the mac and cheese into a preheated 180°C or 350°F oven for about 20 to 30 minutes, or until it's golden brown and bubbling. I hope you give this recipe a try, it's one of my go-to favourites. Remember to subscribe for a new recipe each week. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.